If you think about it, all successful people in the world have coaches, whether it's a competitive athlete, a business owner looking to uplevel their skills, or a performer who wants to get more out of their work. Coaches aren't just for professionals. They are for growth-minded people who need support as they are navigating challenges or changes in their lives. So if you're struggling through something like infertility, would working with a fertility coach actually help you? The truth is, coaching is for people who are ready for more clarity on this journey, more connection, and more calm as you navigate what you are going through. Today on the podcast, I get to sit down with my amazing friend, Lauren Enright, who will show you exactly how coaching can transform your life as you're trying to conceive. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. So today, my wonderful friend and colleague, Lauren Enright, is sitting down with me to discuss something that I don't think is mentioned much in the fertility space. When you are navigating fertility challenges, as we know, it is not just about your body. It is about your mind, your mental health, your relationships, and your resilience. In this episode, we are going to discuss what a fertility coach actually does, how they can support you and meet your exact needs when you're trying to conceive on all of those levels that I mentioned, your mental health, your mindset, your resilience, your relationships. And how can this support be the grounding that you need in order to keep going when everything feels like too much? Now, as this episode goes live, we are about to open the doors to the In Your Element Fertility Yoga program. I am so excited. We have been waiting for this moment for months. It is finally here. On Monday, the 4th of August, we are going to open the doors at 9 a.m. Now, I am sure if you are a regular listener, you have heard me speak about this event, but it is my signature coaching program. It is not just a yoga and fertility program. It is the complete mind-body fertility package. We focus on the science, the spirit, and everything in between. We get access to ongoing workshops with fertility industry experts like fertility doctors. We have a fertility nutritionist and a fertility nurse on staff who are there to guide you through Q&As and answer all of your personal questions directly. And on top of that, I get to connect with you on a weekly basis and guide you through this journey as best that I possibly can. Now, Lauren is a yoga and meditation teacher, but she is also our incredible fertility coach inside the program. So you have access to her each and every month to guide you through a whole variety of topics that she's going to explain within this episode. Now, I don't need to mention, and I'm sure you have seen, that a lot of fertility coaching programs literally cost thousands of dollars. Like, it is mind-blowing. But you get this included, all part of your membership within the In Your Element program, and the cost is $39 per month. I am so obsessed with this program. It is everything that I wish I had had when I was going through it all. And I can't wait for you to get into it. So if this is something you're interested in, join me on Monday. Doors will be open just for a few days or until places are full. The link is in the show notes to get on the wait list if you haven't already, so you can be the first notified when doors open. So I know you can hear the excitement in my voice. You are going to get so much from this episode, and I am just so grateful for all of Lauren's insights. So let's get into it. Lauren, I'm so excited for this conversation today. This is something that you suggested to me a couple of months back, and I thought, what an amazing idea to really bring to light and to share with everyone all of the amazing work that you do and everything that you offer inside this amazing program. If we could start just by learning a little bit about who you are and what is the work that you do, and how does that all fit into the program that's coming up?
Yeah. So, hello. Thanks for having me, Jen. I always love how you are so open to my ideas whenever I have a proposal for you. So, I'm very happy to be here today and to allow your community to get to know me a little bit better. So, my name is Lauren Enright, and I live in Montreal, Canada. And I am a mind body fertility coach and a fertility yoga and mindfulness and meditation expert. That's what I am doing inside of your amazing program. So I am doing the mind body fertility coaching and I'm teaching fertility yoga.
Amazing.
Over here in Montreal, I also am a birth doula with people who live in my neighborhood. So I do go to about one birth a month. I have in the past, not currently, taught prenatal yoga and postnatal yoga. And I am also, in a former life, was a high school science teacher and neuroscientist. And I also have two beautiful children who are now 8 and 10. I can't believe I've been a mom for almost a decade. So it's a little bit
Thank you
about
for
me.
sharing that.
Yeah.
And I love that you were a neuroscientist back in the day. And it sort of, it does feel like a lifetime ago, I imagine, with all of the training. But I think that a lot of what you would have studied and learnt in that phase of your life, you bring to the work that you currently do. And I love that because, I'm all about like, let's blend up the scientific pieces with all of the spiritual stuff, which I think yoga does a really wonderful job of. But how do you find that your neuroscience background really helps you in terms of the work you do now?
I actually would have to say that the biggest thing that probably today that I feel like that came from my science and research days into what I'm doing now is, I see my role as a fertility coach as I still see myself a bit as an investigator of like trying to get to the bottom of the mystery and like asking all of the right questions and like synthesizing the information to really help my clients understand like what is the root cause of their fertility struggle.
Mm.
And I also love inviting my students and clients into like what I would call like their own personal investigations. So I love to, get them to ask themselves questions and then to almost conduct like a before observation and then an after observation so that they could really get to know themselves and see the impact that their practices are having on them. So I think that's what I'm bringing with me today into my work from my science and research days.
Mm. I don't think I realized it at the time, and I'm sure most of us don't. But when you embark on something as difficult as infertility and you're going through this long journey, it really is a journey of personal development too, isn't it? You uncover so much about yourself to be able to look at it and say, well, I was able to uncover so much about myself and to make my life better from what I went through. I think that's a real gift that we're able to give ourselves and something that you help people through really beautifully because we can't change the position that we're in, but we can really get deeper into ourselves and how we respond to all of these things that we're going through. And there is some beauty in that. And I hope that is comforting for people. It's very hard to see when you're in the thick of the journey, but when you look back and you think, wow, I was able to do so much more because of what I went through. And that's what I love about the coaching and what you're offering, because it really does allow people to go inwards and to discover, what else is there in my life that perhaps I could be focusing on and making better for myself. So can you talk a little bit about what is coaching and how can it help people who are struggling with their fertility implement what they're learning rather than just like taking in and consuming all this information?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I think I believe today coaching is becoming more popular and people have a little bit more, that's what I'm seeing at least, that people have a bit of a better idea of what coaching is. But I think it still is a little bit of a mystery to a lot of people. So that's why we're having this conversation here today to really help people understand exactly what coaching is and how it can benefit them. So I put a few words down here as I was thinking about, how to describe exactly what coaching is. And it's such an amazing blend. Of course, I'm like the biggest fan. Like I hired my first life coach when I was transitioning from being a high school teacher into I don't know what. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I didn't want to be a high school teacher anymore. And that's when I worked with my first life coach in 2017. And I've basically had a coach in my life ever since. And it's made such a big difference in my life. And so I see coaching as it's part motivation. It's motivation to do the things that you know you want to do or that you tell yourself you need to do. Right? Like we all have those things in our life that like we know we need to do this and we sometimes seem like a little bit of a broken record and we're like, "Oh, this is something that I really want to do." And then we just can't seem to get ourselves to do it. Okay, so that it's such a great reason to have a coach because a coach really helps us stay accountable to ourselves and the things that it helps to motivate us to do the things that we actually say that we want to do. Right. So that's one thing. I would say, and this is not necessarily with all coaches, but with my coaching, and I do think a lot of coaches are quite supportive emotionally. With my doula background, and when I am doulaing, what I'm doing is I'm holding space for people to process their emotions, and so I definitely infuse an element of kind of doula support into my coaching. I kind of infuse those two together. And to a certain level, coaching, even if a coach is not necessarily doing mindset work, I'd say most coaches are helping people reframe certain thoughts and beliefs that they have. And so when you're working with a coach can really provide a very, very transformational perspective shift on a really key element in your life. And the way that I like to help people understand this is you've probably heard this example before of like, if you can imagine a bottle and that there's a label on the bottle, right? And if you are inside the bottle, like think of your body as the bottle, right? And you're inside your body and you're inside your life. Because you're in your life, you cannot see the bottle and the label from the outside, right? Because you're in it. And so the coach is on the outside of the bottle and they're looking directly at the label. And so they're able to very, very clearly point out to you like your blind spots of like the things that you might not be seeing, the things that you maybe are saying and you don't even hear yourself say those things. Right. And so the coach is a mirror. It's a person to reflect back to you, maybe something that you're already saying, but that you're not even hearing yourself say.
That's a really, really wonderful analogy, being able to sort of see everything that's going on around you, but not see how everything is affecting you and looking inwards. It's really hard to have that gaze. And especially when you are so all consumed by something like struggling with infertility, that it's just really hard to get out of your own head and out of your own space, isn't it? So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think when we're talking about fertility, especially, it is so important to have this really safe place to be able to process what is going on emotionally and all of the ups and the downs of the journey as well. And it's very hard to find people who get it, who aren't going to trigger you, and not even intentionally, but they don't understand the intricacies of this journey. And I think that it's very, very hard to find. So it's being able to sit with a coach and in kind of that group setting where everyone gets it is so, so valuable. But from your perspective, could you talk a little bit about the importance of having that safe space to process? Why is that so crucial?
Right. So what I see when I work with clients in a group setting, and even when I'm working one-on-one, is I see that we all carry, or my students and clients carry to a certain extent a level of shame about their journey, about the emotions that they're feeling. Like there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of grief. I mean, those of your listeners who are on their fertility journey, and I'm sure this rings true to their ears, right? And so the way I see the importance of the safe space, and I think this is why it's so important, the coach that you're working with, or even if it were to be something like a support group. Like I've worked with students and clients before who have been to grief support groups, and they tend to find that it's not very helpful because of one reason or another. And so I think it's very important. And this is something that I do feel like I'm proud of, that I have an ability to create safe spaces, because when the foundation is set for the safe space, it really allows people to feel like they can share vulnerably and openly and honestly. And that in itself is very, very deeply healing, because like you mentioned, there's not a lot of spaces like that that people have access to, in their workplace, in their home environment, maybe with family, maybe with friends. I think most of the time we just feel like other people, they just don't understand. And therefore we just want to close up, right? And not share. And then that almost adds this level of shame and isolation. And we just feel like, oh gosh, like we're so alone. No one understands. And so when we can come together in a group, and feel like we, to a certain extent, belong because of the shared experience of the pain of the journey, then we see one another in each other's stories and each other's struggles. And then we're like, oh my goodness, maybe I'm not alone, right? And then that's just the window into being able to feel safe enough to open. And wow, that just starts like this whole new avenue or path, because then we can really start to heal.
Oh, I love that so much. The group setting I find is so valuable. And I talk about this with my students all the time, as I know you do as well. But this idea of co-regulation, being able to
Mm.
soothe and calm and regulate your nervous system by being with others, is something that I think we forget. We think about our regulating tools. We do our meditations, we do our mindful walks and all that thing, but we forget that we are hardwired from a very biological level to connect with others. And that's a really hard thing to do, is where so many people miss out on their fertility journey because they just shut off from the world because no one understands. I would love for you to speak a little bit about what is the purpose of doing this in a group setting, and just letting people know how they can then grow and learn from others when you hear other people having coaching and having their queries and their fears responded to. How does that help them as well?
Right. So I love when we do group coaching calls, on Zoom, because we get to see everybody's faces. And I'd say in our calls, most of the time, everybody keeps their camera on if they have the ability to. And I think this is an important aspect of it, because we really get to visually kind of you see people's body language, and through the body language, the co-regulation happens. Right? But then that's also a way of, like, what I often see is that, one student in the group will be sharing their story or sharing a particular struggle. And then you can literally see, however many other people are on the call, the heads just like nodding because they're like, yeah. And like they get it because they've been there, they understand. And then so you're telling your story and you might feel like your throat getting a little bit choked up because it's hard to tell the story or to speak openly, honestly, to be vulnerable in front of the group. But then you see all the heads nodding and you're like, oh, okay. So I thought I was the only one that was experiencing this, but like, no, there's this other group of women that are also experiencing it, right? And so we see one another, and then that starts to break the isolation. It starts to break this notion of separation. It starts to make us feel like we're more connected and we're less alone. And then we learn lessons, because when I'm coaching that one person, then everybody else is getting coaching, because in some way they've also experienced that same challenge or struggle. And so, depending on the number of people on the call, and the number of people I get to coach in that time that we have together, it's like you're getting, when in the group setting, it's like you're getting 10 times the coaching rather than, and I mean, while one-on-one coaching is very valuable, I see that group coaching is even more valuable than one-on-one coaching.
Mm. I completely agree. And the coaching that I've had on my own journey, I worked with a mindset coach when I was struggling with IVF. And there is, like you said, there's a lot of value in that one-on-one setting, especially if you really don't find that you've connected with anyone who gets your journey. But when you come together in a group, honestly, I believe that is where the magic happens. And it's so beautiful. Something about having women together that's very special. And I can't recommend it more highly. Do you agree?
Yeah. And what I would add to that is, I don't want to say the right kind of woman, because there's no such thing as the right kind of woman, but because I think sometimes this is where people get stuck and then they miss out on a very valuable opportunity, is when unfortunately maybe they've had the opposite experience of being in a group of women that wasn't a safe space and wasn't a supportive community, right? And so I think growing up, and I know personally I had that experience when I was in high school of having a very challenging time with a group of friends, and then that making it more difficult for me to connect with other women later in life. So I think that's also what's very valuable about joining a program with an expert coach who has been doing something for a long time, right? It's like that we have this ability to create the safe space, and so that you kind of know what you're signing up for, and that you don't have to have come into the calls. I mean, of course, you might feel a little bit nervous, but I think when the container, we call them like coaching containers, right? Because we're containing this space and setting the space, and then the magic happens, right? In these safe containers of support.
Couldn't agree more. That's a lovely way of putting it. You're in this just like little safe little bubble, and that is exactly what we want. Can you talk about some of the very specific ways that coaching addresses these common fertility concerns? So, what is it that people are asking? What kind of questions are you helping them resolve? And what are they taking away from all of those issues as well?
Yeah. So I thought I would talk a little bit about the topics that we came up with for the coaching calls for your program. And so when I started working for Jen's program and doing the monthly coaching call, I suggested to her a few topics that I saw from my practice over 7 years that seemed to be repeating issues, challenges for people on their fertility journey. And we agreed that the best theme to choose for the first call would be talking about setting people up for success in the program, in terms of how to really develop routines and rituals about their practices. Because we all know that, yes, fertility, yoga and meditation is going to be so beneficial on so many levels for the mind and the body and fertility. But of course, if we don't practice regularly, then it's not going to have as big of an impact. And it's so important that we practice regularly. And for some people, I work with some people that actually we almost have to work on getting them to practice less often because they're almost in such a rigid routine that actually we're looking at just paring down their practices. But then for other people, it's and we always have to start where we are. And that's like a big thing that I teach in that first session where we're talking about those routines and rituals is, okay, start where we are, and then can we build from there? So, that's something I think that's very important in that first call that we're going over. And then we're going into some of the topics that I see as the root cause fertility challenges when it comes to, or fertility blocks when it comes to mindset and emotional fertility blocks. And so we're talking about fear and how to overcome fear. Okay, so that is really important. Because fear, and this is, I know from doing this for a long time that so many people on the fertility journey carry a lot of fear around so many different things. And fear keeps the nervous system in a state of stress in our fight or flight response. So then it's going to not prioritize a pregnancy if we're in a state of fear. So we're looking at how do we overcome fear. We're doing one full call on the power of mindset. Through the mind-body connection, we know that, and, I always describe to people, how do we know that the mind-body connection is real? I'm like, well, have you ever heard of the placebo effect? Right? So in the placebo effect, I mean, that is the best example of like how what you think impacts your physiology and the physiological responses in your body, right? And so if you take a sugar pill that you think has an active ingredient in it, then your body responds in the exact same way as if it actually had the active ingredient in it. This is the placebo effect. Okay. So this is so important in the fertility journey, is working on the mindset. So we do a call on that. We're looking at feeling your feels. So we have a whole call in a month devoted to emotional regulation, emotional processing. Embracing uncertainty. That was the call that we had done last month. And that was I find that's a big problem for a lot of people for all of us really in life, like we love to be in control. Right? We like control, and there is so much outside of our control on the fertility journey. And so when we can do better at embracing the mystery, at embracing the uncertainty, at being okay with not being in control, then things become a little bit easier. Right. And then the final call, we're talking about feminine energy, which is something that I'm very passionate about as well, is because I find that a lot of my clients that I work with are often in their masculine energy. They're high achievers, they're doers, they like to go and achieve and have checklists. And this is the masculine energy, and which is not super conducive to fertility. And it's not about one or the other, right? We need a balance of the two, but it's kind of just a little bit of coaching on how do we actually embrace feminine energy. So there you go. It's the whole curriculum.
It's so good. It's so good. And oh gosh, when I look through and, we're talking about these topics and everything that is coming up, I just think, goodness, I wish I had had this when I was struggling through the depths of IVF and all the things that, I went through. And it's so valuable and so beautiful. And yeah, we appreciate you so much, Lauren. I want to talk a little bit more sort of like practically with how coaching kind of works and how it runs. So you teach a beautiful fertility yoga class within the program every week, as do I. And I think that's sort of obviously the cornerstone of you're going to have a fertility yoga program. That's what we need. But why did you think it was important to expand upon that and include the coaching alongside the yoga practices as well?
Yeah, so I see the monthly call, and when we were debating of kind of the frequency, and we settled on monthly. And to me, it is a very valuable reset. This is really how I see the main value of the coaching call, beyond just what the coaching itself is, that if like we always have great intentions, maybe at the beginning of a month when we sign up for a program, right? We're like all in at the beginning, and then life happens, our fertility journey happens, we go on holiday, and we fall off track, and that's normal and to be expected. I'm all about realistic expectations. Okay. And so it's very helpful, and this is something I coach on, is to have these anchoring or grounding rituals, right? Either on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, so that you can recommit, and so that you can come back to yourself and your practices and get back on track. So the way I see it is that if you can really commit to coming to that monthly coaching call, either live, if you can come live, that's always the best, right? When we put in our schedule, and if it's matches with your time zone and you can come live, that's always the best, to really put in your calendar, show up live. If it's not in the right time zone and you're asleep because it's 3 a.m. for you, well, then commit to watching the recording. And then that helps you commit to yourself to get back on track. So that's really what I see it as.
That is so important. And yes, thank you for mentioning that. It is important to note that we change the times of the calls each month to make sure that it is as accessible for everyone in terms of time zones, because that's the beauty and the downfall of having a global accessible business like this on the internet. We have to kind of juggle time zones as much as we can. But I always listen to the replays of the coaching calls, and you get so much value just from showing up and spending that time as well, because it's so valuable.
And on a practical note, what we designed also was a form so that everybody can submit their coaching question ahead of time. So if ever somebody is not able to make the live call, that I always make an effort in the time that we have to answer any forms that get submitted.
Mm. So, for someone who is quite new to coaching, how are these calls structured and formatted? What are they going to expect when they come to that space?
Yeah. So I really like for there to be, this is the teacher in me, right? So I have the scientist in me, and then there's like also the school teacher in me. And I like a lesson plan and I like structure and I like someone to walk away, everyone to walk away with a little bit of something. I like to teach. And so when we arrive, so the calls are 75 minutes. I would imagine that at some point, if we might look to moving them to 90 minutes, right, depending on the number of people that we have coming at any one time. But I always like to set the container at the beginning. So there's a welcome and there's a centering. Very, very important at the beginning that there's a grounding. What that looks like is I'm walking people through a little bit of a somatic exercise with the eyes. I'm getting everybody to share a word to describe how they're arriving, and I'm welcoming everybody by first name, right? So this is my way to just really set the space, the safe space. I'm introducing the topic and just letting people know exactly what to expect so everybody just feels really at ease. Then I like to move into a little bit of reflection and journaling. And so that's also why it's so valuable to come to the calls or to listen to the recording, is because we're actually doing some internal work on the call. So based on that theme or the topic, I have some very targeted specific questions that I'm walking people through. And so they're answering those questions, putting their answers in the chat, right? Or coming off of mute to share some of their answers, and ask questions if they have any questions, right? And then after that, then we move into the open coaching. And in the open coaching, and that's probably, a good 2/3 of the call is the open coaching. And people are either just, asking for coaching right away on the call. So they're either raising their hand, coming off of mute, or they're typing a question in the chat. Or if somebody has submitted the form ahead of time, then I go directly to the form and then I just start coaching on those topics. And the coaching it could be simply a question, that somebody has, about, and we try to keep it based on the topic. So when we're talking about mindset, then we really try to keep the coaching based on related to mindset. When we're coaching on emotional resilience, we're really trying to keep all the coaching, on that topic.
Thank you for clarifying all of that as well.
Yeah.
And last thing I wanted to really ask you about is, how does adding an element of coaching make something more effective? And how does it really get deeper into what you're trying to achieve? So obviously our absolute goal for everyone, no matter where they are, is for them to have their family that they're dreaming about. That is our ultimate goal. But without a magic wand, fortunately, what we can absolutely promise is that you are going to make this journey feel easier along the way, to reconnect with your body, to know where to go for help, to know what questions to ask, to help you get through this in a way that feels lighter and easier and more manageable. And that's the thing that I can absolutely promise people. And then the pregnancy is just, it's the cherry on the top. You get to go through all of these things that we help you uncover, and then the family at the end of the journey is eventually where we're trying to get people to. But how does adding coaching to a program like this really make the journey, what we're trying to help them achieve, better?
Yeah. So I think it comes back to what I had said earlier, a little bit about the commitment of committing to it, and I see it as a deeper commitment. So yes, it's the commitment to doing the practices of these are the practices that are going to help me in mind and body and spirit. They're going to help me. And then, every person is at the epicenter, of all of the community that they're a part of. Right. So then there's this ripple effect of that. It's going to go beyond just them, the practices. Right. But there's this idea that I coach on, or I teach about, and this is a line we use in yoga as well, of where your attention goes, energy flows. Right. Sometimes people say it backwards, and I think it works too, but I really so it's what you pay attention to, right, is really then what is going to help manifest your desires like into physical form. And so, we have so many different things in our world to draw our attention or focus away from ourselves. And so I see again a monthly call, right? In addition to weekly practices, as really this message to yourself and a message to the universe, source, higher power, right? Like that, this is where I'm focusing my energy, but in a soft, feminine way of surrender, because it's not about doing more. And this is what I really try to get my students and clients to see in it. It requires a mindset shift. It's a complete reframe of like, yes, of course, coming to a coaching call and meditating and doing breath work. And you're like, yes, that it involves doing, but it's the undertone of the energy through which you are doing that thing. And you're not doing that thing like to power through it and to check the box and to get it over with. Or maybe sometimes we do it that way at the start, but it's then through the journey we start to learn that we can do these things, but in a softer, feminine way. That is exactly what is going to bring you to the divine timing of the moment when baby's going to come in, is when you're in that energy of receptivity, your feminine energy, combined with the masculine energy of the doing these practices, right? But that we're bringing these two things into harmony. And then baby comes at the divine timing. It's so interesting. Right? Yeah.
The divine timing is the hardest part, isn't it? And when I first discovered fertility yoga, it's so funny you say that. I absolutely came at it with the approach of, this will get me pregnant. This is the thing that's going to make this happen for me. And I very much approached it as this very masculine, I've got to do this, I've got to, but very quickly it shifted and it became this thing that, I just looked forward to so much in my day. It was this space where I didn't have to think about everything that was going wrong in my life or my journey. And it just gave me that beautiful moment to breathe and to connect with my body. And I was, I couldn't believe I'd lived so many decades of my life without really tuning into my body and asking what my body needed. And the things that come to you when you can cut out the noise and sit in silence, it still amazes me to this day, the things that will download and come into my head. And I will resolve so many things that I am working on in my life when I just cut out that noise and come into that beautiful, safe space. And so if anyone is very much like me and very much the type A, let's do all the things, and what more things can I do to help my fertility, I invite you to give it a go, because I was 100% that person, and it completely shifted the way I looked at my whole journey from finding this practice. So I really appreciate that you mentioned that, Lauren. So thank you. And
you're welcome.
I just want to say how much I appreciate you, and I'm so incredibly grateful for all of your beautiful wisdom and everything that you have brought to the world and to this program and to the beautiful women that we're lucky enough to work with. So thank you. Now, before we finish up, I'm sure people have, if they're in my world, I'm sure they've come across yours as well. But if they want to reach out to you and just ask you any other questions about coaching and fertility yoga and all of the practices that we've spoken about today, where can they find you?
Yeah, I think the best place is to send me a DM on Instagram at fertile from within.
Great. I'll add a link to that down in the show notes. Lauren, you are amazing. I can't wait to welcome new students into the program and offer them everything that we have. So thank you.
I'm very excited too. And that first call, I remember, on the routines and rituals to set people up for success inside of your program. That was the best attended call, and there was such great energy on the call. And that's my goal for us moving forward into this next cohort, is to keep that energy going every month.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Jen.
Thank you for listening to the end of this episode. If you have any questions about everything that Lauren explained and everything that we spoke about today, please feel that you can reach out to either me or Lauren at any time you would like. I'm going to link all of her contacts in the show notes as well, her Instagram, her website. and a reminder that doors are open to the In Your Element Fertility Yoga program on Monday, the 4th of August at 9 a.m. for just a few days or until places are full. I can't wait to have you join me on the inside. Now, next week on the podcast, I am going to be sharing with you 6 powerful mindset shifts that are going to completely change your journey of trying to conceive. So until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.